Joining us now on the News Hour is Richard Schmierer, who's a former U.S. ambassador to Oman. He also served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Ambassador, good to have you with us on Al Jazeera. So we now see both sides, the U.S. and Iran, citing different articles of the MoU, Article 1 versus Article 5, to justify opposing actions. Is there still, in your view, a viable diplomatic off-ramp, or has the MoU already lost its credibility as a stabilizing framework?
Well, Falia, greetings to you and your viewers. I think, unfortunately, these back-and-forth skirmishes over the last few days have really jeopardized the MoU writ large. But as you noted, specifically, the issue concerning the Strait of Hormuz is what is causing the current tension. I think the U.S. rightly considers that the MoU requires Iran to not interfere in transiting the Strait of Hormuz. And the fact that the U.S. seems to have been working with Oman to allow ships to go through Omani territorial waters, and that Iran seems to have reacted by attacking those ships is something the U.S. cannot accept. So I think in general there's a kind of questioning why Iran would not want to benefit from the MoU, why it is seeking to undermine the MoU, and I think President Trump will try to be more patient, but I think at the end of the day he will have to react if Iran continues these kinds of attacks.
Iran's foreign minister, when he was speaking earlier today in Iraq, referenced Article 5 of the MoU, suggesting coordination with Oman over the strait after the 60 days of negotiations. Do you think Iran and Oman can legitimately claim greater control over the strait under international law? And how would Washington, you think, and global shipping respond to such a claim?
Well, I think at the end of the day, international law makes it clear that this is an international shipping lane and that all countries of the world have the right to free commercial transit of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it is the case that Iran and Oman are the littoral states on the edge of the strait, and therefore they have some responsibility for overseeing security, safety, and they should be doing that in cooperation with the other countries of the region. And this is what is called for in the MoU. Right. Nothing in the MoU gives any state the right to control the Strait of Hormuz.
Ambassador, you served in Oman. How far would Muscat go in coordinating with Iran without jeopardizing its U.S. ties?
Well, when I was there was always regular coordination between Oman and Iran on safety and security in the strait. Sometimes to the chagrin of U.S. policymakers, because Oman did need to maintain good relations with Iran to ensure that safety. So I think Iran is trying to use its goodwill with Iran. Oman has long had good relations with Iran, but I think its patience is probably being tested, because when ships are attacked in Omani territorial waters, that's something the Omanis cannot accept. So I hope we will continue to see cooperation, but I think the Iranians are really pushing the envelope.
Yeah, and the Iranians would also say that President Trump is escalating the rhetoric significantly. We heard him talk about finishing the job today. How do you interpret this? Does Washington still see the MoU as binding?
Well, I do think Washington wants the MoU to continue to be in effect. There are many elements of it which are actually advantageous to Iran. So I think the expectation in Washington is that Iran will see the advantage of implementing the MoU. So yes, I think the U.S. still stands behind the MoU. But there are limits, and it's not unusual for President Trump to make some very strong statements. But nonetheless, I think the diplomats want to continue the dialogue under the MoU. So I hope we'll see a de-escalation in the coming 24 to 48 hours, and the diplomats can get back to their discussions.
Ambassador, what would each side need to concede in order for this agreement to work?
Well, I think Iran needs to understand that at least for the 60 days of this negotiating period, it needs to stand down from interfering in any way in shipping through the strait. And then the U.S., I think, does need to be forthcoming during the 60-day period on the financial elements that are basically promised in the MOU, which will be of great benefit to Iran. So I think if Iran understands and accepts its situation with the Strait of Hormuz, and the U.S. reciprocates by moving forward on the financial arrangements, I think we can get to a point where both sides see they're benefiting from this MOU.
Thank you so much, Ambassador, for talking to us. Very good to get your insight. Richard Schmierer, former U.S. Ambassador to Oman, joining us there from Washington, D.C.